Welcome to the Slide Getting Tech Simplified channel. And today, I got a phenomenal guest. Her name is Courtney Hirata. Her story is going to rock your world. Courtney, will you please talk to the audience and just tell us how you got started and what are you doing today?
Sure. Yeah, so a little bit about my journey. I would say it's very non-linear. So I started out, actually my degree in undergrad and my master's are both in accounting, and I'm a CPA. So I went through the whole rigmarole of taking the CPA exams, studying for that and finally passing those. And then I started off in public accounting as an auditor and did that for about 4.5 years, auditing different companies, whether they were not-for-profits or they were commercial businesses, et cetera. And then from there, I ended up moving into a revenue accounting role at SAP Concur, which was just Concur at the time. They hadn't been acquired by SAP. And I did just normal in-house accounting. So just, year over year, quarter over quarter, month over month trend analysis, looking at, the different accounting reconciliations and things like that. And then, really wanted an opportunity to people manage. And so within, a handful of months in my role as a revenue accountant, the commissions manager position opened up, which I actually hadn't thought of myself. My manager at the time tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I know you're interested in people management, and I know you've never done commissions before, but would you be interested in taking this role? And so I ended up, kind of taking a leap of faith, managing a team where I'd never done the job before. I'd always envisioned managing a team for a role that I knew how to do. But it was a well-established team, just looking for a leader. So it was a great opportunity for me to manage a team, had great support from my manager at the time, and, had the opportunity to really build and grow a team and learn more about something a little bit outside of accounting, because even though it was commissions accounting, there was a lot of partnering with the sales team and other teams within the business. And then after I managed that team for, 2.5 years, kind of a similar situation where I was sort of ready to make a transition in my career. Someone heard about that, a mentor of mine kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, there's an opportunity in sales strategy and operations, and we think you'd be a great fit from working with you and partnering with you. So similarly, another, total shift where, I wouldn't have picked it out myself. I didn't even imagine it for myself. But, someone saw that opportunity for me and saw the skills that I had. And so took another leap of faith, went into a totally different realm from accounting. But I've now been, managing this team for the last 4 years and really enjoying, partnering with the sales team and the greater business in a different way and with a different seat at the table.
Wow. I got a lot of questions for you because that just excited me. Well, first of all, that's a fantastic career path that you're taking. Very untraditional. It seemed like it's to me, it felt like almost like an action-packed movie. Like you learn one way, then you have an opportunity to try something else, so you're testing yourself. So when you're making those transitions, right, from the first one you made and then taking the second one in sales, what are you telling yourself? Did you have to deal with any of those self-doubts, the imposter syndromes in there? And if you did, how did you do that?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, I would say 100%, like every single time it was such an internal battle to say, I'm not a subject matter expert in this field. How could I possibly be successful when I don't even really know what I'm getting myself into or what I have to bring to the table if I've never done this role before myself? And so really, where I had to kind of dig into was recognizing what skills do I bring to the table that are adaptable, right? Where can I connect dots? Where do I have good business, critical thinking skills to help figure out how one thing connects to another? Where can I be, personable and empathetic and humble enough to learn from the team that I'm moving to manage? And their expertise and their tenure and what they know about the business and what they can share with me, knowing that I'm not going to be, the smartest person in the room and that they have a much deeper wealth of knowledge than I might, but how can I help them develop in that and drive the business strategically from what they know? And then, really starting to like I said, having people around me that really were championing for me. So, my manager who saw that opportunity for me, my mentor who saw that opportunity for me, I think really having their belief and trust in me that I could be good at this job helped me to feel like, okay, they must see something in me that they believe could make me successful in this other role, even if I don't see it yet or I don't know what that quite looks like. And so I think those couple things really helped me to feel at least more confident, still terrified, but more confident that this is an opportunity that I can go chase and really try my best to be successful and really think there might be a chance for me to be successful in such a different role.
That's great. And you said, I got a few things I want to point out there. You talked about first having a mentor, and how did you get that mentor? Did you get did you proactively reach out to it? Like, was it mutual? Like, what was the path when you getting your mentor, and how
Yeah.
did it help you grow in areas that maybe you didn't know was possible?
Great question. So this specific mentor, I would say at first, I just worked sort of peripherally with her. So I knew her from, just working cross-functionally in my role. This was my mentor between commissions, accounting, and sales operations. So we had worked together. She was already in sales operations. And I just remember always admiring and respecting her. I thought that she really knew the business well. I thought that she spoke up, and pushed back on things, even if it wasn't the norm. And I really admired her intelligence, her presence, and still her personability with the people that she interacted with. And so I kind of admired her from afar for a while. And then, as we worked more and more together, I just started to, strike up more conversation with her outside of even just the work topics and conversations. And then from there, asked her, hey, would you be okay or interested in meeting with me on a semi-regular basis? I'd really love to learn from you. I really respect you and who you are in the business. And she was very open to it. And so from there, we started meeting monthly, and we actually still meet monthly to this day. And so I think that really it was a mix of me admiring her, but I do think me proactively reaching out to her and not being afraid to at least ask. She could have always said no, and I've had other mentors in the past who haven't had capacity, and I appreciate their honesty and saying, hey, I don't have capacity. But more often than not, I've found when I've reached out to people that I've observed or admired, they've been more than willing to carve out some time to spend with me and mentor me.
Yeah, and I have similar, I guess, similar experiences. So at my last role, I had a gentleman who ended up becoming my mentor, but he saw that I had a lot of potential, and he even told me, like, Sly, I think you could be a great people manager, director, even executive one day. Just got to polish up some aspects of myself because I'm a tech at Nate. I'm a tech and a creative. So that sometimes means, I'm going outside the lines. I'm coming up with ideas.
Sure.
But sometimes technical, I'm going deep analytically, but sometimes I'm not looking at the 3,000-foot view as a manager will look at. So, I'm good at exciting myself and getting, because I'm just naturally curious, but, my manager, like, how do you do that with someone who's not like that? Can you see it from their perspective? What's motivating them? So that definitely helped me, like certain things, like little things. I'm a little bit off the cuff type of person, like prep for those meetings. Make sure, your meetings are prepared, even if it's just 3 bullet points. Stay on topic. What's in it for them? How are you getting paid? How can you make it more of a win-win situation? And when do you need to speak up? Because sometimes I avoid conflict. So those are the areas where, we put a strategy around where he helped me because he had so many years of experience. And I also helped him when it came to marketing, when it came to maybe creative ideas to get attention, or even certain technical things that he just knew I knew. He just could call me and I can help. So it was, again, but I proactively reached out. I admired him. I saw how he moved. I saw how people instantly saw him and wanted, they respected him, and I wanted the same kind of feel. And something else you mentioned in the past I want to talk about is sometimes people see things in you that you don't see. You mentioned that someone saw you, your manager said, Courtney, we think you can do this. And that happened to me early on in my career. Like when I first came out of school, I ended up taking a help desk job. After getting a 4-year degree, taking the help desk job, I only needed a high school diploma. Felt like, at the time I let down. Like I started looking internally, like, I could have planned a little bit better. I planned to graduate, but my plan after that wasn't fine tuned. But, I'm here, how to make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
So I did a really good job at, answering the calls. It was a technical support. So everything was just reactive, talking, building the plan. And one of the, engineers who was a field engineer came in and was like, Sly, I think you're a sales rep, man. I don't know if you're a tech, because the way you just got on that phone, you got their LinkedIn personality, you got all the information about the account, and then you did the tech. I think you'd be a good sales rep because you already know the tech and sales. I'm like, all right, let me try it out. Lo and behold, a VMware channel account manager came up, and I had to learn, how to make the phone ring, because it was different, because in call center, it rang for me, but then again, I went back to that same guy, like, man, just do what you was doing before. Go make relationships. Who's the best person that you see who's doing it already? So I sat down, shadow with all of them again, but I never saw myself as a salesperson, but ended up turning out to be really good. Then I found out there was technical account managers that was half tech, half sales. Then I finally figured out there was a sales engineer and realized that was a great fit for my job role. And then I then had another manager. I was like, so I think, so I started doing the YouTube channel, and they started seeing me doing branding. Again, I went to school for this stuff. They're like, I think you could be a technical product marketing manager. I never even heard of that role before. Ended up doing that, right? So sometimes you might not even see what other people see in you, and sometimes it's good at seeing those different aspects. Like I remember I told one of my friends, like, eventually I want to be a business owner. She's like, well, aren't you a business owner already? You own houses. You help your wife start a business. I started a business before. Like, you're already doing it, right, Sylvester? So just start, taking a step back. I can tell that you like to do it all. And as a business owner, you got to delegate. As a manager, you have to delegate. So it's like a different hat that you have to learn. But I just thought that was, since a lot of the people who watch this are students, they are people early in their career. So if someone is saying that you can do something, try to get some courage, be a little bit vulnerable. Because vulnerability will help you if you push through it, is what courage is all about. And even times like this role is a stretch role that I'm in right now. But my manager said it, like, we see the skills and to stick with it, Sly, because we know you're technical. We know you're able to talk to a partner. You just got to learn the Microsoft way, right? And I'm stretching again, but my mentor is still there. My manager is still, again, encouraging and showing me how to do it. And he's a great manager because he even gave me people to shadow from, mentors. So he built in like 5, 6 of different mentors in there to help me through my role so I could be successful. So again, if someone is telling you that, this, look introspectively, try it out. And the worst thing can happen is, you learn something and you pivot and do something different.
Absolutely. And I would just echo that of, I think, like I mentioned, of not seeing that necessarily in myself, but trusting the people who saw that in me. I think it is really, I think as far as what you can do or what people can do is, like you said, be vulnerable, make yourself known, right? I think if the more people know who you are, what motivates you, what you're interested in, they'll observe that, they'll know that, they'll see that, and they can start connecting some dots that you might not be connecting because you're not aware of roles that would fit that skill set, or you're so far down, a certain defined path that you're just not even thinking outside of the box. And so I think the more that you can share yourself with others, whether it's teachers or, managers or other employees, it really opens you up to other opportunities because people will notice that in you and they'll be thinking about that for you. And I think the other thing I would say is, I think that's also a really good sign of, or a sign of a really good leader or manager or teacher if they're looking out for that for you or observing that in you. I think that's something I strive to do as a manager, is be observing each member of my team as an individual as well as a collective whole, and understanding what are their strengths, what are their skill sets, what drives them, what unique things do they bring to the table, and helping to align them to opportunities within the team, sometimes even without or outside the team, that really match up with that.
Yeah, and you said that well, and that kind of pivots right into the next role. So now that you're a manager, you've been doing it for 4 years in this capacity. I want you to go back. Let's go take a time machine back into when you was in college and
Mhm.
you was looking at your vision for the future. Is it looking the same? And what advice would you give yourself earlier if you had that ability to go back in time and talk to the younger um, Courtney?
Yeah, so I would say honestly looks totally different than what I had envisioned back in college, back, my younger self. Like I said, I was going down the accounting path, saw myself being, whether an industry accountant or a public accountant for, years to come, and that would be my full-time career. And I think probably as the generations go on, there's a little bit more flexibility and adaptability, but I was a little bit more old school of thinking, oh, I think you start with a job and you kind of stay with a job, or at least stay with a certain role, and that's what you do. And so, what I would say, and even before that, so when I first started college, I thought I was going to be a psychology major. I'm really interested in people, how we work, how we think, the context of our experience. And actually, even though I didn't end up going down that path, psychology is really important for myself in the workplace and as a manager to really understand myself and understand the people I work with. So, what I would say to my younger self is, you know, keep an open mind. I know that sounds really cliche, but I think oftentimes cliches are there because they're so true. But I think it's a mix of being open to any and every opportunity, not pigeonholing yourself and saying, this is what I know I can be, or this is what my parents did. And so I probably would be successful at the same. I think there's a lot of different opportunity for who you are as a unique person that maybe some of the same skill sets that your family has, or that you have, but fit into a totally different role that didn't even exist way back when. And I would also say, kind of like I said before, of letting yourself be known. I think it's the flip of knowing yourself. I think, really taking the time to understand what are the things that interest me, excite me, inspire me. What are the things that, when I get involved in them, whether it's playing certain types of games, or meeting certain types of people, or playing certain types of roles within the clubs or organizations I'm a part of, pay attention to those things that really excite you, and feel very genuine and authentic to who you are. And I think that can really help also, as floofy as that may sound, that can really help guide you to, a career or a path that I do truly think there are careers and paths that align to that. Those don't just have to be extracurricular activities. I think for me, my aptitude for an excitement around knowing people and motivating people, and connecting with people is part of why I love people managing. Like it made me realize I would love to be a people manager because I love relationships. I love connecting with people. I'm analytically minded. I always loved logic puzzles as a kid. And it's something that I would get every year in my stocking from my family. And, that seems silly and little, but I think that analytical mindset is what allowed me to be a good auditor, and to be good at sales strategy and operations and connecting dots. So, pay attention to those things that you're interested in, that excite you, know yourself, and be open-minded to what your interests and skill sets could be tied to that aren't maybe a well-defined or previously defined path.
And that was well said. You had a lot of gems in there. One of them I want to talk about is we're going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to ask you to tell me some more about this.
Sure.
One thing I really did enjoy is that you didn't say it, self-reflection, but that's what pretty much you were hinting towards.
Yep.
So something I would have told myself when I was younger is to have a self-reflection journal. I started
Mm-hmm.
that about 4 or 5 years ago. Not consistent with it all the time. This year I've been a lot more. That's been one of my goals. So I've done it like a lot, like twice as much as I did last month, and it's been very helpful. So it tells me what I'm feeling at a particular moment. How was my day? For me waking up, and how did the pillow feel next to my head, right? What made me excited that day? Was it my daughter's laugh? What made me upset that day? Where could I have grown? And I remember looking back because I I did it like, when I first started my job once, like I did it like I used to do once a year or something. And I'm like, man, all the things that I was talking about, I've done and accomplished. And it gave me a refresh look at myself that I am making those strides.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, this is any time in your life you can do this. I think it's very powerful.
Yes.
Know who you are. Like I find that I'm analytical to a point. When
Mm-hmm.
I get an idea, I do the basic research. I will go try something and see what works and what don't work, and I'll learn on the fly. Since I
Yeah.
was little, I would always do that. I'm always curious about tech. So I got my first computer, started playing with it, broke it, ended up having to reinstall in Windows, fixing it. I got the encyclopedias to walk to the library. Remember, one library was right up the street from my house, literally like less than 500 feet, right? Really
Mm-hmm.
close. But I remember one of the books I needed for my Windows was I grew up in Brooklyn. It was all the way in the Grand Iron Plaza. It's about 3.5 miles there. So I used to walk there and back to get the book, read it, and then come back home. And like sometimes if I couldn't take it out, I'd have to read it there and come back. But again, natural curiosity. So on my role now, I found roles that I got to learn about technology. I already like doing it already. So it makes sense. And I used to had a tech support business when I don't even know I had a business when I was little. All my friends would come to me and I'd fix the computer for free. I would get other things, like bartering, getting other things. And then even when I got older, right after school and I was looking for a job, I started slide a computer guy. I started fixing computers. Again, I don't fix computers now, but I help solve problems about technology, business problems. And again, the main thing is always with people. 'Cause I did an internship as a network engineer in a data center. I didn't enjoy it. I was good at it. Didn't enjoy it because there wasn't enough human contact for me. So I knew for me, I always had to be a front end engineer who's near the customer and not necessarily behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I enjoy those relationships. But again, if you don't know those things, it's going to be hard. Because when I came into school, I was an English major, and I was an English major because I wasn't good at English. You might say, wait a minute, you was an English major, wasn't good at English? I figure if I have to write 20-page papers, I got to get better. And the only way I know how to do something is go all in it. So I ended up doing it. And actually, I started off as a C student and I started getting higher and higher grades, and I hit Milton, and it was just too boring. I had to figure out something out, right? But again, to this day, I write poems on the side. I write these scripts for these different series that I like to do, and eventually I'm gonna start my own like cartoon series or like a movie series. That's something else I like to do. But again, these are hobbies that I usually turn into business ideas. Like I just finished writing a Daddy's Little Girl book, poetry, short story book that just got to figure out how to get it published. But again, taking those, like you said, those interests and aligning them to business, and then taking those transferable skills and using it throughout my day.
Yes.
As a partner technology strategist, that just means I'm helping partners, build applications and services on the Microsoft platform. And you need to leverage those soft skills, technical skills, and relationship building skills, everything that I accumulated. So I say that to sum it up is if you take the time to do some self-searching, it definitely would help. And I read a lot of self-help books. I know sometimes when I talk to a lot of engineers who's logical, they don't think those are helpful. But unless you already know yourself already, I feel like it's always learning. I'm uncovering new things about myself. Why do I do certain things, certain habits that I did when I was younger? And then I realized my dad is everyone's best friend, right? So that's why I have the natural ability to do that. And my mom is more of, she provides the order to everything. So I'm always trying to make a system out of things. And then my brother's always looking 20, 30 years in advance. So he helped me see a little bit further. My sister had the gift to gab, right? Everyone, again, it was her best friend. And she can, learn stuff pretty quickly. But again, I'm starting to see certain ideas that I have that I got to change, right? And that all starts with self-reflection. So
Totally.
I'm glad that you went down that path, because I think if I would have had that insight or been maybe more aware of that insight, that would have helped me think through a little bit more things that I want to do. But sometimes life is funny. You got to enjoy the journey. That too is you got to be fluid. I didn't foresee going from an English major to a marketing major to an IT major. I had a teacher that saw me in my tech class, got 100. He's like, man, you're good at this. Did you try? Not really. This stuff I was doing. Again, someone helped me along the way. So,
Totally.
just be present, I will say another thing is,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to just, take that information when you're getting it.
Right. Totally. And one other thing I thought of that I think about, so same for me, I didn't even think about accounting. Like I said, I was interested in psychology or the social sciences, but then I met with an advisor because, I quickly realized I don't know that I want to go and become a psychologist or a therapist. I think I'd get too emotionally involved in what was going on, or I'd end up becoming too detached and compartmentalized, and I don't necessarily want to do that. But I talked to an advisor where I was like, well, I also like math or kind of analytical, and she was the one who said, have you ever thought about business? Because business marries understanding people and working with people, partnering with people, while also being analytical and analytically minded. And so she really was the one who had that vision for me to help connect those dots to say, hey, these two interests and skill sets of yours really could fit well in this arena that I had never even considered. But the other thing that I was going to say is that I think that yes, not every job is going to hit all your buttons either, right? Not every job is going to excite you, inspire you, and use your skill sets in all the ways that you want. But I do think, we don't, sometimes we discount the ability for a job to hit a lot of those pieces that really motivate us and excite us. And I would say also, in some ways, some of my job has actually opened doors outside of work to things that really do inspire me and motivate me that are, maybe non-work related. So what I mean by that is, through my role as a people manager for the last several years, through my, I guess, connections in the business world and in the community, I've had the opportunity to sit on several board of directors for nonprofit organizations that are really near and dear to my heart and places that I really care about. And it's interesting because, I think you always think of volunteering at these places or, being engaged in that way, which I think is a really beautiful and powerful thing. But it's been really exciting for me to see how my skills as a manager and my experience as a manager have really allowed me to be an effective board member to help vision for, strategize for these nonprofit organizations and to allow their employees and their volunteers who are really the ones, interacting with people, doing their work, to not have to worry about some of those logistics and administrative things. That's a role that I can play with the other directors on the board. And so it's been really cool to kind of see how that has opened up my job, and my experience has opened up opportunity for me to be engaged in the community and in things that are really close to my heart outside of work in a different and new way.
Yeah, that's great. And I got very similar things too, right? This job has, like, my job's at presenting. I'm presenting right now. Like, I end up, my connections have got me to you because I live in Buffalo, in Brooklyn, in Florida, and you live all the way in Seattle, right? So the chance of us meeting, even in our careers, are probably slim, right? But through my network, I'm able to reach out to amazing ladies like yourself and other ladies who are who was on the show and that will be going on to the show, right? So I get to do things that energizes me. And you're right. One thing I did want to pick your brain on is, how did you get those seats on those boards?
Yeah.
Because even, like, that's something I'm trying to learn how to do. Like, how do
Right.
you do that? Like, where do you start?
Yes, great question. So honestly, it's kind of similar to the job journey. So for the first board that I was on the board of directors of this organization called Operation Night Watch in Seattle, and it helps to reduce the impact of homelessness and poverty on our neighbors in the Seattle area. And the way that I got that opportunity was, I've been working for a handful of years. I'd actually been starting to learn about board service through another nonprofit that I was a volunteer at, and they had kind of like a board leadership training program that I was going through. So I was just learning about what it meant to be on a board and all of that. So it was kind of equipping myself in that way. But then the chief operating officer of this organization went to my church, and so did the board president. And they were thinking, hey, we need some younger people on the board. We need some more diversity on the board. Oh, Courtney is somebody who's, kind of up and coming in her career. And again, I think it's the whole, being known, letting yourself be known. These people knew who I was. They had interacted with me before. They knew sort of what I was interested in my just career and in my life. And so they actually were the ones who said, we'd love to have you join our board. Would you be interested? And so that's how I got that first position. And the organization is also somewhere I had volunteered at as a youth. So I was familiar with. So that was really nice, where they really kind of saw me, saw the opportunity and helped open the door for me. And so then from there, as far as getting the next board position, Jubilee Reach is where I'm on the board right now. And it's an organization in my neighborhood in Bellevue that serves similarly those impacted by poverty and homelessness, but also, or I guess mainly, poverty or other impacts, but does it mainly through the schools. So provides support through the school system and to the youth, and then thereby gets connected to families and provides services to not only the youth, but to the families as well. And so, the way that I knew about the organization is I volunteered at a early morning breakfast service that they did. So companies would sign up to serve breakfast, once a week or once a month. And so my old accounting firm, or my former accounting firm, Clark Newber, had, a breakfast day every month. And so I used to serve there, really loved the organization, loved meeting the employees and the kids, et cetera. And so then, after having board experience under my belt from Operation Night Watch, when I was rolling off the board, because they have you serve a 6-year term and then you take a sabbatical, I thought about, where is there an organization in my community that, I'm aware of, I'm interested in, that I think I could really help or would love to be a part of. And so I thought of Jubilee Reach. So I actually just emailed info@jubileereach.org. I literally just found that on the website and just let them know, hey, here's who I am, here's my experience, here's my past board experience, here's why I care about your organization and my involvement in the past. And then ended up starting a conversation with the executive director and board president from there. And, big leap of faith for them too, because they didn't know who I was. I was a random person reaching out, but I do think having that previous board experience really did help open that door for them to trust. I knew what I was doing, and I knew what it meant and what was required of a board member. And then just got connected that way. So this is actually, only the second board that I've been on, and I'm actually joining a third board later this year. And so I think that, again, knowing myself, making myself known to others, most of the board opportunities I've had are either being tapped on by other people who know me and think of me, and also me proactively reaching out.
That's great. So that I have another question for you is, I know you're busy as a manager, right? And so how do you balance being on boards, and what does the workload look like? Is it like a few hours a week? Is it like once every quarter that you meet? Like, how does that even work?
Great question. So it really depends on the organization. I think some organizations look for board members who are very active and constantly involved, not just in, monthly or quarterly board meetings, but also on, several committees, finance committee, development committee, et cetera. And then there are other boards where, the organization is really self-sufficient and running pretty smoothly on its own, but they still look to have their board members as kind of consultants or advisors as they go through different capital campaigns or, going through different strategic changes in the business and looking for the insight from their board members. I would say I've been kind of involved in both, and the organizations that I've supported have had, different levels of need. And so, for myself, that's part of, as I'm evaluating, a board or an organization is finding those things out, before I join, of how much involvement are you looking for? They usually have some kind of outline of, here's the time commitment, here's, maybe any financial commitment, here's, the expectations of what role you play, how many committees we might expect you to be on. And I will say, I started on the Operation Night Watch board when I was earlier in my career. And so I did have more capacity to do not only, the monthly board meetings, but also be on multiple committees and even start to lead some committees, which were, additional meetings monthly outside of the board meetings. And then, as I've progressed in my career, as you mentioned, there's a lot on my plate during the day with managing my team and my own workload. And so the boards that I've joined later on, and I'm continuing to join, are ones that maybe require less active involvement, constantly, but are still, looking to me as an advisor and consultant to be there for usually about monthly, if not, bi-monthly meetings, and then maybe be involved in a committee or two as well on the side. And so I found, the ability to balance that. And then for me, it's also just prioritizing that. So, sometimes the board meetings are during a work day. And so I make sure to block that in my calendar and allow for that, and then adjust, my working hours as needed, or work on other things. But I just see so much value in being able to be a board member and be engaged in this way. And I also want to set the example for my employees that, there are other things in life that are happening that are also important to prioritize. And, as long as we're making our deadlines and meeting our deliverables, like, we should absolutely look to prioritize these if and how we can. And so I feel fortunate to work at a place that has really allowed me to do both, and feel that I can be fully engaged and successful both as an employee at my role and as a board member on these different boards.
Wow. Wow. Truly inspirational. I don't know where you find the time at. I need to talk to you about some learning how you're blocking off your time and making time for it. That'll be a conversation for another time. So let's keep going. You kind of alluded to it earlier. Some hobbies that you did with your non-for-profits. So what are you doing outside of work, outside of non-for-profits? What's some of the hobbies that you partake in?
Sure. Yeah. So besides those things, I love to stay active. So the Pacific Northwest is a great area for, hiking, running, exploring the outdoors. So, love to go for walks in the local neighborhood, love to, run. I like to play sports. It's funny, as a child, I played some sports, but I feel like I play even more sports as an adult. Not so much during the pandemic, but, love to, meet people that way and just, stay active and stay engaged with myself in that way. And so, whether it's bouldering and rock climbing, or it's, playing soccer or flag football, softball, things like that, I've really enjoyed doing that. And like I said, it's a great way to meet people and build community. And then, besides that, I love to bake. I think everybody has learned even more about baking during this time, but love to bake. Pre-pandemic, I love to travel, and I would say you can kind of notice some themes with me. I love meeting people. I love immersing myself in experiences, and so traveling, I think, is such a beautiful way to learn about different cultures, different people's experiences, different ways of life, and it's just such a beautiful picture and experience to be able to do that. So that's one of the other things I've really loved to do before, and hope to do again sometime soon.
And do you feel like though your hobbies help you enjoy work more because now you got that time to de-stress? You're still doing something that gives you energy. You seem like you get energized by meeting people. Does that make you perform even better, you think?
Absolutely. I think, sort of like I mentioned with being on the boards and prioritizing that, I think that prioritizing these pieces that, provide myself with, my own wellness and taking care of myself outside of work allows me to be my best self at work. And so I think that, having those hobbies, and some may seem totally unrelated, but like you said, my love for connecting with people and getting to know people outside of work, I think also helps me be better at connecting with people inside of my work and being really inclusive and open, because I've experienced so many different cultures and experiences outside of work. And so I really do think those hobbies, both from the aspect of allowing me to de-stress, and then also from the aspect of, learning different things, helps me be a better employee.
Oh, that's great. And that kind of goes right into the next question. So what are some of your favorite books? And if you're a podcast listener, what's your favorite podcast?
Sure. So from a book perspective, I know you had kind of mentioned this earlier too. So I do really love self-reflection and engagement. And so one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown. She's also a phenomenal speaker.
Yeah.
But I love, her, talking about the gifts of imperfection and talking about vulnerability. I think that she has really great perspective on this idea of knowing yourself, empowering yourself in who you are and accepting yourself as you are. And I think that's applicable in work and life, etc. So I really love pretty much anything by her, whether it's her own podcasts or books, etc. And then from a podcast perspective, my favorite one, and honestly the one, probably the only one I really listen to, is Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. And so, what I found with him is he's very funny, but he also has a really interesting life story, and he has a background actually in anthropology. And so he spends a lot of time talking to a variety of individuals, and I try to listen to all of them, even if I don't know who they are. Variety of celebrities. He also brings in different experts in, psychology or politics or things like that, and just has long conversations with people, honestly, kind of like this, and picks their brain on their experiences and their life. And I really like, he's pretty unfiltered. And so he's not afraid to ask, the questions that maybe everyone's thinking, but no one's actually asking. But also he's very genuine and open and isn't afraid to share his own, kind of shadows or dark sides openly. So I really appreciate the vulnerability and authenticity of his conversations.
Yeah, and the great thing is Microsoft actually having us read Dare to Lead.
Yeah.
So I just learned that. So even when I said the vulnerability for courage, and that was
Hmm.
one thing that she mentioned in there. So I just
Yeah.
finished listening to her audio book, and I'm actually rereading it now just to go back to kind of solidify some of the concepts that I went. So that's my first time being introduced to her. So now that
Yeah.
I know that she doesn't have more stuff, I had to dive a little bit deeper. So that's definitely pretty cool.
Yes.
Um, a book that for anyone listening, they probably know the one book I really like is Simon Sinek, Finding Your Why. If you're
Mm.
early on in your career or even I found it like in the middle of my career, so like finding your why, what's your purpose, and how do you, live a life that corresponds to that why. It
Mm.
makes life a little bit more meaningful. It put things in perspectives, helps me prioritize how I spend my time. And I think it's been the last few years after reading that, I found my life has been more rewarding for the things that I like to do. Like I'm a big family guy, so I spend a lot of time with my wife and my daughter. After this, I'm about to go on a date night. So, still trying to do things that when I first met my wife, and we've been together 13 years. I met her at 19.
Mm.
But it still feel like that first time. So, but again, finding your why. What's your purpose? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I work so hard? Is to provide a better future for my family. And I see the curiosity and the eagerness of my daughter, and I never want that to leave. So my job is to be all I can be and try to chase that curiosity that's inside of me, so she knows from her dad and from her mom that we're continually trying to push ourselves to chase that curiosity and to learn. So that book for me was really, really good. And another one, Never Split the Difference. That
Mm.
one helped me understand how to negotiate, have the difficult conversations. And actually, it had a little bit of psychology in it too. Is sometimes I felt as sometimes being someone who loves to talk, I might not dive deeper. I might not say, let's unpack this or tell me more, or can get to the real root of why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And that job that book has not only helped me increase my earning potential like substantially in a short period of time, it also had me help me get into deeper relationships and not as surface level sometimes that you can get easy. I like to meet people as well. And sometimes growing up in a place like Brooklyn, you meet so many people, you learn how to communicate with so many people, but you don't really have those deep and those life-changing relationships. So those two books helped me out a ton.
Mhm.
So I absolutely enjoyed this meeting. I wish we could talk for another hour, but the show must conclude. But before we do, something I have to ask you is how can the audience contact you?
Sure. I would say the easiest way and the best way to contact me is through LinkedIn. So you can find me, again, my name is Courtney Hirata, Courtney Hirata. So you can find me that way. And I think my work email is also on there, but you can email me at courtney.hirata@sap.com. But that's the best way to find me, contact me, get in touch with me. I would love to meet you and hear more about you and your questions and talk about life and career and anything else on your mind.
Great. Well, that's going to be all for us today. Sly Gittins and Courtney are out. Peace.